oops. And this one. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Be Free Radio Show, Brain Food from the Heartland, copyright Be Free Radio Limited, 2022, produced by the lovely Ms. Bunnyface in cooperation with White Rabbit Productions. I'm honored to have on a very special guest from 911justice.org. I have Brett Eagleson on. Brett, good morning. Thank you for agreeing to come on.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
It's my honor. A little bit about 9/11/2001 for you personally, if you don't mind.
Sure. On 9/11/2001, I remember it was a Tuesday. I was in high school. I was a sophomore in a rural town in Connecticut. My father, Bruce, was working at the World Trade Center. He was on the 17th floor of the South Tower. He was there on a temporary assignment. Normally, he would have been headquartered in Connecticut, but his role for his company that he worked for was to oversee all of the operations of the malls on the East Coast of the United States. He worked for a company called Westfield, and Westfield had recently taken over the lease of the retail space at the World Trade Center. So they inherited this lease. I believe it was in July of 2001. And if anybody that's ever been to the World Trade Center complex, they'll know that there's a subway station that goes beneath the towers. It's a subterranean station, and surrounding that subway station is all retail. Back in the day in 2001, it was a mall. It was owned and operated by the Port Authority of New Jersey and New York. New Jersey and New York Port Authority said, we're not in the business of owning and operating malls. Why don't we get a professional company to come in here and operate this mall? And my dad's company, Westfield, recognized that this would be a great project for them. So they entered into a lease for that space for 99 years. They wanted that mall to be their flagship mall on the East Coast. So they were undergoing a massive renovation. And they said to my father, because that mall fell within his jurisdiction, they said, we want you at this property on site while we go through the renovation process. So the deal is that Tuesdays through Thursdays, my dad was in New York City, and it was supposed to be a temporary 6-month assignment. And then when that was over, he would be back in Connecticut, and he wouldn't have to be in New York Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, sometimes Fridays. So it happened to be September 11th, 2001 was a Tuesday. So my dad had gotten in the night before, and his company had office space on the 17th floor. So he didn't have an office in the mall itself. Their back office and the office for all the renovations and things like that were contained on the 17th floor of the South Tower. When the planes hit that day, or when news broke of the planes hitting that day, my older brother Kyle had seen it on TV, and he knew that our dad was there, and he obviously was nervous. So he called my father. My father picked up the cell phone, and this was after both planes had hit. So if you remember, the North Tower was hit first, but it was hit higher up. And then the South Tower was hit second, but it was hit a little bit lower down. So my dad was in that South Tower. My brother Kyle talked to my dad. My dad said that he was fine, and that he was going to do everything he could to help with the evacuation process. But then he himself was going to get out of the building when he thought that it wasn't safe anymore, or he thought that if he needed to get out, he would get out. My brother recounts on that phone call that he said that in the background it was chaos. It was chaotic. There was people screaming. There was sounds of things smashing, and my brother just knew that there's no way that my dad was really portraying accurately what the situation was like.
He was making it, he was trying to comfort.
He was trying to downplay it, saying, I'm fine, everything's okay. Yeah. And I'm gonna get out of here soon. Yeah. Meanwhile, my brother hears in the background screams, noises, bangs, flash, pops. So Kyle says to my dad, just get out. Just what are you doing? Please get out of the building. And then my father said, I will, but I got to go right now. So they hang up the phone call. And that was the last anybody ever from our family spoke to him. What we later found out was that my father was in the lobby of the South Tower, and he was there with a colleague, and they were making their way out the door. And according to my father's colleague, my dad kind of turns around and looks back and sees the pandemonium. And he says to his colleague, he says, you get out. He says, I'm going to go back up to the 17th floor to grab a box of portable two-way radios. Because remember, he was in the mall management business. And back in the day, I think even still to this day, they use the handheld walkie-talkies for the maintenance staff, that you always see if you're on if you're ever in a mall or a big facility, they're communicating with the two-way radios. Mm-hmm. So my dad had a big extra box of those. And he said to his colleague, you get out of here. I'm just going to run back up to the 17th. Meanwhile, like running up 17 flights of stairs is that's not a 30-second gig, right? That's a commitment. So he says, I'm going to grab the radios. I'm going to make sure there's nobody stuck in the stairwell. I'm going to make sure that the 17th is clear, and I'm going to make sure that no one's on the 17th. And then I'm going to bring the radios back to the FDNY command post, which is in the lobby of this building. And then myself, I'm going to get out of the building. So they both agreed to part ways. And that's when my dad turned around, and we don't know. That was the last known whereabouts of him, was in the lobby on his way back up to the 17th floor to grab the radios. At some point between then and on his journey up to grab the radios, that's when the towers fell. And we've never recovered him. We never even, there's been no identified remains. A lot of people will have artifacts like a ring or a wallet. And we've never received any of that, which, in a way, it's kind of almost like at this point you don't want to receive it, because it's.
Tell me. Me too.
Yeah.
If you can, Brett. I don't want to push you, but.
So one of the ways that I got through that time was like knowing that if you never received him, there's no finality to it, right? There's no right. There's still a chance, right?
Yeah, I hear you.
So even 21 years later, obviously we all know that he died, but there's almost a sort of peace in knowing that you never had that confirmation. So in a way, he's still with you because you don't have that definitive answer. And that's actually been comforting.
That's interesting. I appreciate you sharing that. You just made me think of something. I had a Dr. Pauline Boss, who I believe she told me she's like 88. Her newer book is, she coined the term, the myth of ambiguous loss, I don't know, 40 years ago. And her new book is called The Myth of Closure, ambiguous loss in the time of pandemic and change. But it makes me think of what you're talking about. There's not that there's ever, and we talked about this, and I certainly agree with her, there's no closure. I mean, that doesn't bring peace, knowing it's still
right
painful, but just that not having somebody disappear, somebody, and you have no actual remains. You don't really know exactly.
I mean, the way I look at it is there's almost something mystic about it, right? It's like that he transcended. I don't know, you tell yourself everything that you need to, but your dad never really, there's no proof that he's gone, right? So you can internalize that and take that to mean whatever you want it to mean. But like, and I don't know, if who if people believe in afterlife, if they believe in heaven, if whatever you believe in, there's, to me, it's just, there's no one that can say, yes, I have proof that he's gone. So like, he can live on within you, you know, and he can live on through you. And you never had the universe throw it in your face to say, well, here's his finger, or here's his ring, or here's a bone. That's never happened to me. And in a way, I sort of used that as strength, because that gave me some comfort, knowing that, well, if he's not gone, then he's here with you somewhere.
It's,
If that makes any sense, or if that's just
you know,
batshit crazy, I don't know. But yeah.
Brett Eagleson, it's how you deal with it. I don't think anybody should judge that as whatever. It's how you feel. And that's what needs validated, is how you feel. And if
Right.
it's strength, if you derive strength from it, whatever, that's you. And I don't like when people say, I know how you feel. I don't know how you feel. And very honestly, Brett, and I say this respectfully to you, I don't want to know how that feels
Right.
to have something like that.
Yeah.
I hope you're not insulted by that.
No.
People say, I know how you feel. I kind of cringe when I hear people. It's like, even if it's you, I don't know how you feel.
Right.
But
Right.
I hear what you're saying, and don't want to imagine that pain. And it's always with you, but you derive strength from that, which I think is a wonderful thing, a wonderful way of processing it or dealing with it.
Right.
And it pushes you to move forward, as you have with 9/11 justice.
Right.
But it's, again, and people always think about anniversaries. Yes, the anniversary as you approach 9/11, I'm sure around that time, but it's always with you, correct? I mean, some people only think about it, and I get it. As it approaches, it's like, oh my God, it's it's
Yeah.
September, and
Yeah.
especially those of us that were around then. We were saying earlier, we were talking about your nephew, and I think about how when I hear that kids, I wonder what kids are being taught in school. And I don't mean to go up, because we have a couple of things we want to talk about 911justice.org. But if are they not being taught? Or how are they saying that when the kids aren't, what do they teach? Aren't they teaching this? And I don't know if they still have regular American history classes in high school.
Yeah.
It's been, over a half century for me. So I don't know what they're teaching today. But when I thought about it a couple of years back, when I thought, wow, it's now 18 years later, the kids now that are graduating high school were either infants or not even born yet.
Yeah. And
Still don't have answers.
that's one of the goals of this organization, is
Tell us.
making sure that we have a true accounting of the events that happened on 9/11. And I've often said, when I've done interviews such as these, is, what is your goal with this organization? What does justice look like to you? And the truest answer is that we need to get the narrative right. We need our schools, we need our educators, we need our children growing up in a society, in a system where they're told the truth about what happened on 9/11. And you can disregard what the mainstream narrative has been for 21 years. If we can come to a point where we don't care about the geopolitical interest, if we have the courage as a country to really hold the Saudis accountable, and the courage as a country to really educate and tell the truth and be honest with ourselves and our children and our schools about the role that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia played. And we've been met with such resistance to that, because there's such a cozy relationship from administration to administration with the kingdom, and it revolves around not only just oil, but weapons sales, a presence in the Middle East, and there's this dynamic there where the Saudi government buys U.S. Treasury securities. The Saudi government buys billions and billions of dollars of weapons, and those weapons companies have tremendous influence. They have incredible lobbyists. They're some of the most powerful people. So that's why we're up against that. Is nobody wants to support us, or nobody wants to support this idea that oh my God, the Saudis really by and large were behind these attacks. But going back to your original point is that it's so important for us to get that right. It's so important for people like my children when they go to school. I mean, they're too young for school right now, but when they're school age and they're learning about this subject, it will have been successful if when they're reading about 9/11, they're talking about uh, the fact that the FBI said that, you know, Omar al-Bayoumi was a Saudi intelligence operative, and he was taking direction from, you know, two levels down below the Saudi ambassador, and they were using Saudi consulates in the U.S. to plan and orchestrate these attacks. If that's the curriculum, then mission accomplished. But right now we're just trying to draw public attention to it, and we're starting with the public at large, and then, you know, once we can get that narrative changed, then we'll focus on what they're teaching in the schools.
When you think about some of the, again, so many unanswered questions, Brett Eagleson, so many. I mean, we could spend hours talking about what we don't, and why the government, why, like you say, administration after administration seems to not pursue truth and justice. I want to say it as broadly as I can without picking up points, but this isn't. And one of the things today that really disturbs me is if you criticize some aspect of a president, whomever, then you must be all in support of the other one. And that's you know, I would like to believe, I would hope to believe that people, when if they're talking about me, they say, well, you know, I like when Louis does this, but oh God, I can't stand what he, you know, it doesn't have to be an all or nothing, you know,
Right.
and that's the thing. And everything's so polarized today.
We don't have to paint everything with a broad stroke brush, right? We can like some of the things that Biden stands for, and we can hate some of the things that Biden stands for. We could, like, you know, God forbid if I said that I like some of Trump's talking points,
Yeah,
I'll be called a racist, a
yeah,
homophobe, and everything else. So,
everything.
you know, which is the craziest thing, because that's not me at all. Like, that's not, you know, I'm going to a wedding where, you know, I'm going to a gay marriage wedding today. Like, you know, like I have friends that are, so it's just, I mean, and this is a bigger conversation about society today, but you're right to highlight that point. It's like we are having a hard time being effective already. Now add in like this polarization, it makes it even more hard, because God forbid if we had to criticize Biden, all of a sudden, you know, all the crazy left are going to come out and trash us. But if we criticize Trump, then all the pro-Trumpers are going to come, and it's like you can't win. And it's like we're already having enough time battling our own FBI, battling our own government, fighting for the truth. We don't need to battle the fringe on both sides.
No, so. I agree. I brought this up along the show. It bothered me back in, and I know social media is different than friendships. You know, I would like to think, well, I know I can argue, discuss, sometimes scream about politics with someone, but we remained friends. That back in 2016, if you voted for Hillary, unfriend me. Unfriend you. If you voted for Trump, unfriend. I mean, how do you have any discussion about anything? And like you say, if you criticize Biden or something, then you must be all in on the other side, and that polarizes us and gets nothing done.
And here's one thing which I think is important to talk about, and it's one thing that gives me hope, is that our issue, our 9/11 justice issue, is the least partisan issue that I can think of. We are a totally bipartisan group. We have no political agenda. And it's one thing that I think Americans can really come together around, and we can rally around this. And let's bridge that gap between the left and the right by standing for 9/11 justice. And I think that that's one thing that in all my work in the United States Congress, that's one thing that they've found common ground over. I've worked with Senator Cornyn and Senator Grassley, and I've married them together with Senator Blumenthal and Senator Menendez. And, you know, if you want to talk about political spectrums, they're both on the opposite ends. But you know what? They both agree that what we're doing and what we're talking about is right and just, and they both support this. So if they can do it at that level, I think that we can do it at the mainstream. We could do it at the level all across this country, and let this be, something that was so drastic and so devastating to this country 21 years ago. Why not let this be what heals us?
Yeah.
Why not let this be what we can come together on? Have this be the foundation, and use that as a building block to repair some of that damage that's been happening over the past 20 years.
When with the organization, when you again bring people together and highlighting some things and showing what questions are still out there that haven't been answered, some of the things and the connections with the Saudi government, as you say, administration after administration, lobbyists, weapons, whatever, all include. It does feel and seem very odd to me. Not That's understating it. It's outrageous that we still don't have answers. Yeah, I'm trying to be, it's our first time talking, right, Eagleson, so I'm trying to be a little calmer with my or better with my words. But when you think of things, I mean, whichever things that you want to look at, there are so many unanswered questions, so much that seems to be covered up. And I'll say this with people, they say, "Oh, you're just paranoid, Lou. You've always been paranoid. You always think
No,
well,
I thought I was that way too.
Tell me.
I thought I was that way. I thought, I was one of these people that I grew up and I said, no freaking way. There's no such thing as conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
No way. And then the more I got into this and the more I started learning out, I'm thinking like, holy shit, there is something to this. Like there is a cover up. It's an active cover up. And then I see that you've got former senators, Bob Graham, he's one of our champions. He's now retired. He said that this is not even a cover up. It's an active deception of what happened on 9/11. And that's a former senator who was the chair of the Intelligence Committee. So you are right to have your questions. You are right to have those suspicions. We've identified that. And, there are a lot of theories. One of which is that there was massive intelligence failures before 9/11. The CIA did not communicate with the FBI. The CIA should never have been tracking these guys on American soil without telling the FBI. They didn't tell the FBI until August of 2001 that they got a bunch of radicals loose in this country and they have no idea where they are and they're hell-bent on doing some harm here. And the FBI goes, how long have you known? And they've known for over a year. And the FBI says, so you're telling us now that we've had pro-jihadist, Wahhabi extremist Muslims here in the United States wanting to kill Americans, and you didn't bother to tell us? And so there's a lot of blood on somebody's hands for that decision. Then you have, after 9/11, you have the United States starting a war with Iraq. And it was under the guise of weapons of mass destruction. It was under the guise of war on terror. And it was under the guise of either you're with us or you're against us. And the administration, the Bush administration at that time, used the momentum. They used the temperature of the nation right now. We were hurt. We were scared. We were fearful. And we said, yeah, let's go bomb the shit out of the Iraqis, right? But nobody actually stopped to think if the Iraqis even deserved it. But we did it anyway. Yeah. And what we found out was that the Iraqis never had weapons of mass destruction. So now you got a real problem, because when it comes to light that our government knew in 2001 who really did it, and we said, we kind of put our hands over our face and said, oh, it wasn't the Saudis, and they blocked every roll and they didn't look down that road, and they did anything to do with Saudi Arabia. They just said, no, we don't want to hear it. But what they did was they refocused that onto Iraq. And they invaded the wrong country. So, now you have all the blood of all the dead Iraqis on your hands. You have all the blood of all the dead soldiers on your hands. All the PTSD, all the trauma, all the pain, all the misery that's resulted from that war in Iraq. So no wonder why we're trying to get to the truth behind 9/11. We're trying to get to the Saudi role. And we're just getting met with resistance. So not only is it, the special interest about oil, lobbyists, and weapons, but there's also this issue of, well, one, the intelligence failures. That was a big embarrassment. That was a big screw up. But then two, post 9/11, how did we justify a war against Iraq when the documents and the paperwork and all the smoke was coming from Saudi Arabia?
And we could talk about the Taliban today and all of the things that were going on maybe next time. And
Sure.
just made me think of something that was probably, I can't tell you how many years ago. I had Admiral Stansfield Turner on, and I'm going to try to just give me a minute. I don't know if this is the boot up, if you're going to be able to hear it or not, but I have a clip from that show, and that it stunned me. It's excerpted. It was edited because I wanted to get to the point. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear this. Maybe I'm not. Can you hear that music at all?
Yes.
And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Louis Free Morning Show. I am absolutely honored to have as my guest Admiral Stansfield Turner. Admiral, good morning.
Good morning, Louis. We had rumors that intelligence snippets came out into the press that there were plans to use airplanes to bomb the CIA, as a matter of fact, some months before the actual bombing of the World Trade Centers and the Pentagon. So it wasn't a total surprise.
Admiral Turner, but you said that you had heard that there were reports prior to about trying to crash planes into the CIA?
Yes, plot uncovered that was included hijacking some American airliners in the Philippines, and then one story that they had plans to crash a plane into the CIA headquarters here in Langley, Virginia.
Will you come back and spend maybe a half hour with me some days in the not too distant future if
I'd love to.
schedule permits it? I can't thank you enough for your time, Admiral.
You know, and when I heard that, and obviously that was, at the station they cut it to that part because I wanted that part. I was stunned. I mean, I can hear it. It's like, I'm stuttering. You said what? There was plot uncovered, and things like that. Just I don't understand. He was head of the CIA, and you're saying that on a. I'm not saying he didn't say it before. You're saying on a talk show about Lake Erie, and it just when you think of all the unanswered things and what else don't we know? He said plot uncovered was in the. I didn't hear about that. I hadn't heard about that before.
Well,
so that was probably 15 years. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'll give you another one to contemplate. And I have a former FBI agent who works with us, and I think he would love to come on and talk about this. But his name is Ken Williams.
Send him my way.
His name is Ken Williams. Read about him. It's Ken Williams. He wrote the Phoenix Memo. Ken Williams uncovered the dry run for 9/11. So before 9/11 happened, you had two Saudi students rush the cockpit of an airplane. I think it was a SunWest. It was the Arizona. It was a Western airline. I think SunWest or something like Sun America. And the plane has to divert, and it lands, I think, in Chicago, or it lands once a cross-country flight. Two Saudi students here on diplomatic status rush the cockpit, try to get in. The plane lands. That was what the FBI considered to be a dry run to see, okay, how quickly can they get to the cockpit? Is the cockpit secure? Can they get in there? And they basically opened the door, and that's all they did. And then the plane landed. Ken Williams wrote a memo on that. Ken Williams also wrote, I believe it was on September 9th, 2001, he had been requesting that he get a search warrant for an individual's computer. And he wrote in his email when he got denied that warrant, he said, God help us if they hit us with planes. And that was on September 9th, 2001. So I'd love to have Ken on your show because he could really, and it's not just me saying this stuff, because I feel like sometimes when we talk about it, people perceive us to be biased or that we're just saying things that are crazy, right? But they sound crazy, but they're true. And when I get people like Ken Williams or Danny Gonzalez, who's an Operation Encore agent, when I get them to come and talk, they have more credibility because they're the agents that work the case. They're the agents that wrote the memos. And, just some of the stuff is just so in your face. It's so outlandish but then you're realizing that, oh my God, it's all true.
And that's it. That's it. You know, also, I have to tell you, I have I know you got to split in a minute, but Bogdan Jakovic, who was he wrote a book called Fortress of Deceit, Story of a 9/11 Whistleblower. And he comes on with me a couple of times a year. He was with the TSA, and then he was on the red team, and he kept warning. He and Steve Elson and another were warning government, telling them about this, and fell on the expression deaf ears. I'm not fond of, but nobody did anything. No one listened to them.
Yeah.
And there's so many, and we start piecing this all together, and it's right.
Mhm.
I know you got to split 911justice.org. How can people support? How can people help? What can people do?
Follow along, ask questions, challenge the narrative that it was somehow 19 hijackers, essentially individuals with no knowledge of English, no money, no knowledge of Western culture, no idea how to fly a plane, were somehow able to band together and pull off the most consequential and devastating attack in American history. Challenge that narrative, ask questions about the Saudi role. Follow along on our journey. Go to 911justice.org. We are pretty good. I mean, there's not a lot of us. We don't have unlimited resources, but we're pretty good about updating that journey and posting news articles, relevant documents, and relevant information. And I hate to sound like I have my hand out here, but if you support us and if you want to see us continuing the journey, there is a donate button on there.
I'm asking how we can support you, what people can do. And of course,
Yeah.
you need, it takes money to be able to.
Sure, but I don't want to get the perception that we're doing this for anything. Every dollar that we get, we use to buy ad. Like, for example, we bought an ad in the Boston Globe, which that's a lot of money, but you know what? It got a ton of attention. Like, we're throwing this into the face of America, and those high up in the government hate it. They don't like that idea. Sure. that we're poking at some really sensitive areas. But if people like that stuff, we can't do that without funding. So if people feel so inclined, if they support us and support our cause, you could absolutely go donate through our website.
And again, it's 911justice.org, 911justice.org. Anybody you want to send Brett Eagleson my way, but
yeah,
I'd be honored to do. I want to have you back. I want to talk about the golf tour. there's so many things I want to talk about, but I know you've got a busy day. So please, if you're okay with how this went today, let's do it again soon.
Absolutely. I had a great time. I had a great time talking to you. My next week is much better. Okay. Like I said, I've got that wedding that I'm getting ready to go to tonight with my wife. So
that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Yeah. A couple you've known for a while.
Yeah. They're good friends of the family. So
it's beautiful. Enjoy, and I will reach out to you. And I so admire you and your courage and in speaking up and out about this. We deserve the answers. You deserve the answers. The families deserve
the families deserve better. I mean, we just deserve better. The way that we've been treated by our government for 21 years is atrocious, and that in itself is a travesty. So, I mean, the families deserve the truth. They deserve answers. We just deserve better. And sure do. I'm hoping we're getting close, but I will definitely come back. Thank you again for having me.
It's truly my honor, Brett Eagleson.
Let's be in touch.
We will. Now it's 911, folks. It's 911justice.org. 911. What an incredible young man.